looks crazy to everybody.
That's a fact.
But he's still following God's instructions. He struggled with God's instructions because it was such a long journey for him. And he looked crazy. He couldn't entertain himself with his friends anymore. He couldn't spend time with the people he normally hung with because they now call him crazy. He's focusing on God's mission and trusting in God. And for 100 years, I think 120 years they said took, he looked crazy. And God gave those people time to watch his prophet manifest trees from nowhere, manifest that boat, then saw those animals come to that boat. And none of those people took the time to start repenting when they saw God's miracles. So God gave them time because God loves unconditionally and wants us to repent and change. However, God's patience is not forever. Once I show you and I demonstrate these signs to you and you still choose to ignore me, it's just like a parent telling you, hey, quit doing that. Stop it. No, I'm gonna give you a whooping. I'm warning you, stop. You disrespected me is what you're saying. You ain't gonna stop. Okay, hit a belt. Now you stopping. Now you crying and hollering. Now you sorry.
Now that's temporary. Those whippings are temporary. They don't do very much good very long unless you do something to follow that up with. First, if you have a child that is what we like to call in my part of the country a little rascal, he or she won't follow family rules and regulations. There's nothing wrong to whip that child and tell him not to do it anymore. But if you do that, all he's going to do is get well, and next week he's going to do the same thing. So when you whip that child the first time, you need to say, after you talk to him, we are going to make some changes in this household from now on.
Right.
I'm going to expect you to get better. I'm going to put you on a curfew. We're going to have learning sessions in this house. We're going to talk about our problems and come up with solutions. And I see you running around, slipping out of the window. I'm going to ensure that stops happening. You're going to have to improve in your school. I'm going to get tutoring for you, even if I can't afford it. I'm going to get your brothers and sisters to put an extra 30 minutes or an hour with you several times a week and pull your grades up. You're not going to be talking and working and dealing with those friends that I'm whipping you because you were misled by them.
Right.
And this is going to happen for at least the next 6 months, whether you like it or not. That's the way you do it after you whip them. You don't whip a child, no matter what his age, and then talk about him in a negative manner, threaten to kill him if he does it again the next time, and not do those other things that I mentioned, because you are getting your child ready to be a school dropout. You're getting your child ready to be part of the juvenile justice center system and the prison system by the time he turned 15 to 19. And after then, being able to do whatever he wants to do, because they don't fear whipping very often after the first 2 or 3 times. They're going to do what they want. But if you put those other restrictions on that person, you have a better product, a better human being.
I agree.
And they will help serve the nation in a positive manner because their children going to be better.
Right.
But currently, our children, for the last 5 generations in the black community, be getting worse. Worse.
And why do you think that is, Doc? Now,
I just told you why.
You know why we talk about it. How much of it do you think is related to the lack of parenting because of the introduction and over greedy government removing mental health during the most tragic time in American history that I can think of in recent history, when we're going through a drug epidemic, something totally brand new for society is spreading like smallpox, and we're struggling to understand it. And your government comes in and removes the mental health. They cancel your pensions. They lower your wages, freeze wages, the things you need to get out of those problems. Your government knowingly crippled you. So when we talk about an enemy, we're talking about a serious, in charge of life as we know it enemy who took advantage of our weaknesses. And in my opinion, showed me that capitalism played the right way creates slavery. And that's what I saw is capitalism is really designed to find a way like monopoly to control the board. So now I control the prices. Now I control the wages. Now I control the internet, television, all media under one umbrella that I own. You get out of line, I cut you off. Like you said, you get out of line, I'm the umbrella though. So capitalism to me is a monopoly game to gain all the resources and activities secretly and hidden from public so that eventually you're my slave.
But, sir, you have to understand, if it works for the enemy, it can work for the oppressed. I say if that is the case, and it is in most cases, but you have to look at it on the other side. I look at it on the other side of the coin, where I say there is nothing wrong with capitalism if I can get a lot of it. So you have to understand it is your responsibility to get a lot of that capitalism. And what you're going to do, you first have to get some skills. You got to have enough common sense to figure out how to get $1 and make $1.25 from it, and on and on. You have to first have to decide that I'm going to have 2 children instead of 10. Instead of 9 or 10, and I'm going to make sure I teach them at home before they get to church and the school to be a good citizen and learn how to survive individually and collectively before they get out in society, and they will have the skills, the thinking ability, and the work ethic to do something so they can get the capitalism they need, to own their home, to buy them some land, to learn and study and take advantage of educational opportunities in your community, whether you have educational opportunities or not. And then you form coalitions with the churches and other groups in the community and expand your children's education and experiences and internships and scholarships right where you are with what you have, and teach them leadership initiatives that they learn how to use and pass it on to their children. It always starts in the family.
Now, normally I would argue with you.
Well, do so.
No, because I saw something. And if you said that if the capitalism works like that for the oppressor, then it can work like that for the oppressed. I'm a lean into that and I'm gonna say, if that's the monopoly game we're playing, is to get the most capital so that we're in control of the board, then I'm gonna make a call out to all God's people and say, hey, this is where you want to make your donations to Dr. Henderson's type of thinking, to my type of thinking, to where we want to get control of this board so that we can make the changes that are necessary for the future for these children in such a way that we actually, now this is me saying this part here, I put God back first in this whole situation. Like you said, we praying before everything anyway. So why don't we put God laws back in place to love one another, to take care of our children, to be planning for the future like we were talking about before we started, is we might not be here when we see these things come to
You're not going to be here. We are not going to be here.
But we need to make those moves so that the children will see that future today. We need to start moving in that direction. So I'm going to say we calling out all folks who good to let's put our capital in the right direction and let's remove it from the direction we're going. War, lust, drugs, crazy mindset. Can't we see that capitalism direction is wrong? So let's pull back against that evil direction so that we don't have a celebrity or anybody else who's in control of our children's minds out here doing evil things leading our children in the wrong direction. We need the brightest of our bright in leadership. They need to have the capital.
So that's why you teach that at home. You teach the brightest of the brightest in your family. I do the same in my family. My neighbor does the same. And that's where you promote the change. You can't have people doing all kinds of things, as you mentioned, in the community, and you don't teach your child when he is around 6 months old of age and older how to refrain from those things and put him or her in a position where they don't even want them things because you have taught them how to use substitution that's going to help them become better people, help their family become better. And when they get in positions of responsibility in government, in the church, in the schools as leaders, they're going to promote the things that they can see from experience that help them get to where they want to be. And eventually they will get involved in politics and get these offices. They will be the captains of industry and things which are changing in one generation. But what you're talking about is going to take 300 or 400 years.
No, I think we have to change the narrative. It didn't take us 300 to 400 years to go from respectable marriages to can't stay married. That happened in my lifetime. From seeing couples fighting and shooting each other and hitting each other with hammers, and right now they still married. That happened in my lifetime, so we can reverse it in my lifetime too, is what I believe, Doc. See, we didn't go from your parents being married until somebody passed away, right? Your parents divorced?
No.
Okay, so you alive right now. I saw that too. Parents, not my personal, but I saw those relationships that went through all types of tragedies and challenges who still remain together.
That's what they're supposed to do. You don't go and break a relationship just because of some kind of slight infidelity or some other misadventure in a relationship. You have to work through those things. So every time there's a problem in a married couple's life, you can't go and divorce and separate, take the kids here, there, give them to your grandparents.
In our lifetime, that has become the norm.
That's exactly right.
So why can't we reverse it in our lifetime?
We can.
I'm 50. You've seen it go from married to stay married to can't find a good person. So I went to the beginnings of the divorce age. Let's get back to the strong marriage age by the time I'm your age. You feel me?
I feel you.
By the time I get to your age, I want to see marriages being the important factor that we support, not this run around and see how many bodies I can put on the notches on the headboard, not for men nor women.
Well, sure. Let me tell you what you have to do. Starting where you are with what you have to set up that scenario where you become that person you just explained, where you get a new mate.
Just
stay
be
with
honest.
That new mate. You're probably not wanting to do that now, but I'm telling you, it doesn't take a life.
No, Doc, I'm not going to say I'm not wanting to do that. I'll say I had to mentally be prepare. I had to mentally prepare myself to re-enter the search. I didn't want to bring brokenness into my next relationship. I didn't want to go from the person who wrote poems and sung songs of love to having a divorce and becoming one of the He-Man hated women's club like the Little Rascals, you remember?
Right.
I didn't want to be in the He-Man hated women haters club. So I saw that was the narrative being pushed across social media. And in the beginning of the divorce, I was flowing down that river with them. I was bitter and hurt and I sought out therapy because that wasn't who I was. And it wasn't easy to journey backwards. You know, it's a lot easier to get caught up in the negative when you got the support group of patting on your back and we hate them too. And that support group is huge. But the journey back is small. It's a small support group heading in the right direction to where we focus on love again and families again and men protecting the family again. See, that group was small and I'm starting to see it grow.
Well, let me tell you, Mr. Williams, what you don't want to hear and others don't want to hear that's in the situation that you just mentioned. There were some flaws somewhere in your life starting in the family, before you got to your teenage years. There were some things happening.
Yeah.
You didn't have the ability to change those things. No one told you or helped you change, and you followed suit. What I just told you is that if you get a good, strong family structure starting when that child is about 6 months old, and they have enough sense to stay together, solve their own problems, and still stay together, and raise those children with principles, with curfews, with the ability to be leaders while they are young. When they move into big society, the schools and the churches, they are going to be in a position where they are not going to make any significant changes in their lives. See, you listen to those people out there that's promoting that fast life, drinking, doping, chasing other sex, and all this kind of mess, and that's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to keep you broke, keep you mentally unwell, and cause you to lose all of your economic power, and you will end up in a situation where you're hoping somebody can give you therapy and counseling to get you back on track. But if you had followed that early training that I mentioned, this is just an example, you wouldn't have to go through all of it.
I agree. I agree with you. The path of righteousness was taught to me at a young age, and that is what drove me back to righteousness.
That's right.
What they say, raise a child up in the right things to do, and they'll return. I think what we're missing today is a lot of people aren't raising your child up.
That's the problem. That's what I'm telling you. That's the problem.
Like we forgot that part right there. We're not raising them up in the right way. I may be a part of the last generation who was forced to go to church on Sundays, who was forced to pray, who was taught to even pray at night when you go to sleep, who was taught to pray before your meals, who was instilled the concept of a creator, something bigger than myself. I may be a part of the last generation who was taught that. So if I'm the last generation who was taught it, guess who's the problem? My generation.
That's a fact. But that's our fault. We didn't teach the stuff that we learned at home in that 2-family unit. We didn't teach that. So our kids didn't learn it.
Right.
And we allow them to be out there in society trying to follow the current mores and folkways that's out there and be acceptable to those kind of evil spirits.
Right.
Rap. A lot of continuous sex, drugs and abuse, stealing, lying, cheating. That's what kids are taught today.
Right.
And if they're not taught it, they see it in their families and in their friendships with others, from the politicians to the preachers and the corporate leaders. They read about it all the time.
They do.
And then we promote that stuff by allowing them to have the social media experience where they learn those kind of things from 6 months old up until they get out of the household. And I see this almost every day when I get in a group. Little kids. They can't even read and write, can't count to 10, got little machines they're playing with, and the parents doing whatever they want to do. They sit back there in the car or in the house somewhere playing with those machines, don't understand what they are doing, but they're enlightening themselves and learning the processes of evil.
You're right.
They're not learning anything that's positive to help them put $1 in their pocket.
You're right.
They're going to teach them how to spend $1 and put it in someone else's pocket.
You're right.
That's the parents' fault and problems.
And that's why I said my generation dropped the ball totally. We don't want to admit it. It was like you just said. A lot of people don't want to hear it, especially when you're talking to the people who doing it. But I've been to therapy enough to know accountability is the only way to get the change.
That's a fact.
So for me to sit here and say, that was us. It was us. I remember going to young ladies' houses, or they come into mine, and I remember how we behaved. I remember going around children, and instead of us calming it down or sending the kids to the other room, we were doing it right there in front of them. So I'm on board with, we dropped the ball.
That's right.
We created the problem. Well, we made it worse. Exacerbated, is that the word? We made it way worse by our lack of accountability and our inability to remember how were we raised? You know, we weren't raised with the kid sitting right here while you drinking. We didn't do that. We didn't see. I can't tell you when I saw I was a grown, almost grown man when I saw my mama with a glass of wine in her hand. That's real. That's the truth. You know, I can remember them doing their grown people stuff, and you see it from the distance, but you're not allowed in there.
That's right.
You don't really know as a kid who can't read that well. You know that's a beer, but you don't really know. Your concept is not infatuated on what these adults are doing. You know when you're around the adults, you learn from them. We weren't around them, like I'm saying, to learn from them. We could see, like, I can't see what that bird doing. I see the bird. But I don't know that bird is taking little bitty pieces off of this tree and making a nest and going down here and getting cigarette butts and flying back up there and making a nest with it. I don't know that. I do know it's a bird there. And I know that bird is in that tree. That's all I know. And that's how it was for our elders is I can see them in there and they drinking something. But what are they doing? I don't know, because I need to get this Tonka truck over here and get on back to my kid business, you know, and I don't think we have that separation anymore.
Well, we don't.
You know.
And that's our fault, sir.
It is.
And if you know that is the fault of the mankind and the nations of the world, as you are alive today, you have to start teaching young people what I just explained,
yes,
whether
sir.
they are your children or not. You have nieces and nephews. You have cousins. You have community organizations that you can go and volunteer to work with without a salary and help them 1 or 2 hours a week and teach them that little bit that I've been talking about. And you're going to help one at a time.
Right.
And that one day is going to start a family. He or she is going to get married. And you will have already taught this young person, you are not going to start a family out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. You're not going to start a family and move in with his mom or his daddy. You're going to have a job. You're going to have some skills where you can protect yourself and your family.
Right.
That's what you have to teach them. No matter what position of life you have been denied because of your ill performance, you have to say, well, I have messed up, but I'm going to save the next young generation before I die and start with a young person. Hell, you can't start with somebody 15 or older. You have to start with them when they're about 6 months of age.
You do?
Start in the preschools. Go to the elementary schools, the middle schools.
You know,
get 1 or 2.
You know what's funny about this conversation I just realized?
What is that?
Last time I was having this conversation with somebody, they said, you know, you sound like a Republican.
What difference does it make?
That's what I said, too. I was like, I'm not a member of any political party. I'm a member of what makes sense and honesty and truth is what I'm a opponent of. Is I'm on the side of what makes sense. And the example I use to them is I'm not finna get on that boat with y'all about men, women, same thing, and choose your. I'm not finna do that with you. This is my stance on it. If my daughter wants to go and be in female wrestling, and that's what she wants to do, I'm supporting my daughter to be a female wrestler. Now, if my daughter comes into a match with your son who identifies as a girl, I'm pulling my daughter out of that.
You say you're not?
I'm pulling my daughter out.
You should. You should.
My daughter's not finna fight your son.
That's a fact.
I don't give a shit I don't care how he identifies. Your son ain't finna hurt my daughter.
Well, let me tell you why I allowed my son to become that person, to promote that gender.
He can promote whatever he wants.
Because I told my son
he ain't fighting my daughter.
That he is weak, that you are not worth anything. You're like your Uncle Purvis, or Uncle Eldridge. Or Uncle Eldridge.
Hey, yes.
And say, man, you're not headed anywhere. You can't win for losing. And he decided that he is going to go to school and become a cheerleader or get on the girls' swimming team so he can be a winner. And then you support it. Say that the Lord has decided that's what you want to do, and you can go and declare that you are female, and you can change your hairstyle. You can wear a dress to school from now on, and go into the female bathroom and tell the coaches and the teachers you want to be on the wrestling team or the swim team, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And if they mess with you, I'm going to take them to court.
Well,
That is causing problems in the nation and the world because of weak parents. And you support them when they are doing these misdeeds, allow them to become adults and decide what they're going to do. But you say, in this house, we're going to follow these rules, and here are the rules. I'm the rule maker. And if you can't do it, you let me know, son or daughter, and we'll work out some other plan.
now
That's the way you have to do it, sir, to be successful.
I'm going to try to be open-minded on this subject too. Just bear with me. Trying to be open-minded. Like, I meant what I said, and I stand by it. My daughter's not finna fight your son in no wrestling. Not happening. Care what you say. Your son need to be over there wrestling with men. Now, I do know a lot of stuff, studied a lot of stuff. So I will say this too. In instances where whomever God decided to make this child inside her womb, and that child was delivered with multiple sexes inside, that's not something I'm able to quite understand, although I know it happens. I've seen the science, I've studied the science, and the only thing I can say is we have to love them too.
Of course, I agree with that.
They didn't choose to be born. They didn't even ask you to have sex to have them. They were brought about by God's will being done. Now, why is not for me to answer. By God's will being understood, how God's will works. I got stuff happening in my life. I don't know how God will work. I'm saying that we have to be willing as a society to accept that God is doing something new. And it's time for us to pause. Now, in your own Bibles, not my Bible, I just read y'all books like Torah's, Bhagavad Gita, and all them. I read them. It says that in the end days, there will not be man nor woman. I don't know what that means specifically, but to me, it says that there's a understanding of something to come. Just as God had man and separated, they talk about it as a one individual being split into two. That's the way I see it, is we're taking this one and making two. So now you have a helpmate. That one came from two. I'll flip it around and say women were first, because where did Lilith come from? Later on in the Bible, we mentioned that. XX compared to an XY chromosome. I think whoever wrote the book might put itself first, because that's what the oppressor would do.
Well, that's what happened. That's what happened.
What you saying? What happened? The oppressor.
When you write the book, you put in the content you want to put in.
Right.
You put in the content the person that hired you to write the book wants you to put in.
That one.
That's how simple it is.
So
if you do anything that's opposite, you usually not going to get the support of the person that paid you to write the book.
Right. So if I say just on a way of studying it, when the Creator decided to make us, my saying is, she's XY, XX, you're XY. That seems as if I'm leaning towards her may being first. You're here to protect her from all the dangers of the world, but that'll be another discussion another time, because I don't care who was first. Because if you found out you were first, would it make you act different? That's my thing. If you found out the dark-skinned people were here first and had an albino child, and that's how the light-skinned people got it, would you act different? So if none of that,
probably not.
You not.
Probably not.
You not. If you found out that all the prophets were your color, would you act different?
Probably not.
So none of those things matter as far as the history of, I could care less how we got here. But what we are dealing with now is God's will being done. And I think that those books have told us these things are going to come to pass. I want you to love your enemies. I want you to pray for your enemies. There are going to be a time when there are not men and women. There are going to be just people. Be prepared for these miracles to take place. They are the signs that let you know that the end time could be approaching. However, if my people who love me, if my people who love, understanding that openness and forgiveness and wanting change, if my people who are called by the name of love will seek love, my face, seek love, and turn from their hatred, turn from their disobedience, and turn from their misleading of children, then I will heal the land.
Well, the land will never be healed, Mr. William. That is not going.
You don't think we can do it?
Well, that's not going to happen in our generation. I guarantee you, it's not going to happen in our generation.
You don't get another generation, Doc.
I say it's not going to happen during our generation.
No, it has to, because
it will not. Our generation is getting worse in the negative every year. I didn't say every 100 years. I say every year.
Yeah.
Because of the inability for us to look out for self first, family second, and community third.
But what if this is the time for the generation to push back? See, we got a few months from November, and what if we go in there and clean house? I'm talking about we clean house. Like we got the FBI in Jackson right now attempting to clean house. What if we keep going with that energy?
Well, we also have the FBI on the national level, on the state level, doing the same thing.
So what if we follow that lead and say, hey, the FBI is on them? Let's get them in November too. Let's stay on them.
But someone like you, Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams, going to have to initiate that on the local level,
we doing it
in your community, on your street, in your church, in your school, in your community organization, with the people that are currently there. You can't wait for the outsider to come in and tell you what to do and then defend you as Attorney Crump does every time somebody has a problem. They call on him. Hell, you got local lawyers, and sometimes if you do some things for yourself, you won't need a lawyer.
Now, let's talk serious now. You said local lawyers. Let's be real. You told me, I don't know if you want to talk about it in private or no, but local lawyers work for the businesses we trying to sue.
Well, of course, most of them do.
So
and they prefer to do that because they make more money. But there have always been some exceptions where there is a handful to work for the other side. And I can remember that very clearly in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a lot of black lawyers in Jackson or Hinds County. They only had a few. And most of those worked for the people that needed support legally.
So what we got down, though, is you said yourself, you having a hard time finding a lawyer to do something for you.
Well, these lawyers now were trained by the opposition.
Again, if the opposition has, like you said, strategically took advantage of capitalism to crush their enemies and prevent them from justice, because now it's a conflict of interest for me to go and sue this place because my lawyer has a contract or deal with them, won't even take the case.
That's fact.
Because it's a conflict of interest. So now I got to call every lawyer in the state so that I can find one that doesn't have a conflict of interest. And guess what they going to do? They're going to reach out to a local lawyer to see if they can assist them in the matter, right?
Usually.
And what they going to find is that opposition you were trying to avoid because they working for the company. So the people who need justice, you can't even get justice right now because our lawyers didn't sold us out.
But the thing is, I gave you an example of the late 50s and early 60s when you had just a handful of lawyers, less than 10, and in most communities, less than 3. Those 3 took most of the cases. Some got paid and some didn't. You had an in-kind contribution in many instances. You paid them in other ways than money. And those guys didn't intend to die rich, nor were they looking to become rich. They had a purpose and a mission in life to help you, help their clients, because they had enough common sense to know that if I help my poor clients, I can help myself and my family and my community later on. And you don't go and get those lawyers that's already been aligned with the opposition. You find some young, thirsty, hungry lawyers that's ready to work to build himself up to the point where he will have a chance to be approached by the big boys and he can say yes or no. But he has worked for you for the last 10 or 15 years.
So what you're saying is we need to go straight to the law school.
Get him out of law school.
Get him out of law school.
Get him out of medical school.
Get him out of there. That's where our new leaders of lawyers and
you get them young. You get them before they get contaminated with the sins of the mankind.
That's an idea. I'm gonna consider that one. Who got the law school close to Jackson right now? Bellhaven. Jackson got a law school?
No, they're not allowed to have one. You have Mississippi College there in Jackson.
MC.
That's right. And there are several others in the state.
And I had to go hang out over there on campus and see can I find me a young law student who want to help Let's make the change necessary.
See, you don't even know what you said.
What's that?
You said something that is so strong until it's ridiculous.
What's that?
In a positive manner. You say, I'm going to walk over there and find a young student that want to promote change. And you didn't finish it, but you were saying, I'm going to find him, and me and my team are going to put him in law school, pay for his training.
No, we didn't say that.
I know you didn't get that for. But you're not going to let him go and get a scholarship from X organization that's going to teach him their way, and then put him in an internship with one of their organizations that's going to teach him how to be a capitalist. You want to teach him yourself through the means that your community organization gave him the scholarship. Let him come back and work for your church as the legal lawyer for the church or your community organization.
Like that.
He has the skill. He has financial independence because the community people have paid for his education. He doesn't have a loan to pay back, and he can work and learn.
I like that.
That's what we have to do.
I like that. I love that idea, Doc. And let's put that into motion, because where we're headed right now is to a place of change. And what we need is change bringers. And as you said, let's get them out of the school, keep them from having to struggle and fight to compromise themselves is what I think we're leaning at. Don't allow them to be compromised by who we're trying to defeat.
Yeah, by the capitalists that want to maintain the status quo.
Right.
You get them and put them in your own training at home first when they are 6 months old. Then you look at your situation and use the best resource available in your community, and that is the church, and start church programs church programs that's going to teach law, that's going to teach science, and then when they get into a position where the church can't help them anymore, that's when you give them a scholarship to go to X law school or X medical school, and won't let them get loans and grants from those places. We take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Then you get back, when they finish, let them come back and work for you and support them. You help them find homes. You help them find a good wife or husband among your team people, your church people, your community people. That's what you do. If you want to be saved versus praying day and night, suffering and catching hell, and thinking the Lord going to do something for you. It's not going to happen.
Tell me something, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Why do people say that the mindset we have and the things we're talking about lean more to the side of the Republican Party than to the Democratic Party? Why is that?
Well, because of conflict of interest and what I call a lot of blatant lies about the Republicans and the Democrats. The only difference in a Republican and a Democrat is how you spell the word. They both want to get something where they promote themselves, promote their family, and promote their friends.
Ooh.
It makes no difference whether you're Republican or Democrat. In America, you have the same groups. In other countries, they just call them different names. When they get in power, they usually maintain the status quo. If they are a nation of leaders that believe in taking advantage of the nations that have resources, that don't have strong armies, that don't have the nuclear bomb, they're going to go in there and take them. They're going to take them out.
So to you, it's, and I'm a slide in and say, to me too, that's one bird flying in one direction. Same bird, two different wings, same agenda.
Every time.
They just happen to say it differently.
Because that bird is being fed from the same trough as the other bird. Ooh. So you have to get your own bird, feed him something different, teach him how to fly with his and your interests at heart, and then you'll see a significant change in less than one generation. I've been teaching this for years.
Doc, you got to say that again. The bird is what eating from where?
From the same trough of the people that are promoting the status quo.
Man, I think you hit it all over the head right there with that one, Doc. I had never heard it said like that. I'm a borrow that from you. And
you may do so.
Because you know what's funny? We didn't.
Don't worry about it.
We didn't do none of this.
That's right.
We can cut that next time. But man,
let me tell you what.
You've really hit something.
Okay.
With that bird feeding at the same gutter.
That's a fact.
That same bank. That same, what's those people? Lobbyists.
That's exactly right.
Those same treacherous, trifling people are feeding that same bird.
Right. Now, let me tell you what these birds do. They get these little birds, they give them scholarships, and they're not going to put them in an internship where they learn their skills at an organization or with an organization that's going to promote your interest.
Right.
They're going to send them to one of those institutions that they support, that they have funded already for 200 or 300 years, and they will be promoting deals that's against you. So how could you help your enemy and expect your enemy to liberate you when he's using your resources and you don't have enough sense to use those same resources and train your own people?
Well, I don't think until talking to you today, I didn't see that path. That's why I like having these conversations between generations, because when I mentioned going to the school and finding somebody, that was totally about myself.
It's not about you.
I'm just saying, though, in my truth.
Right.
That was for me to go and find somebody to help me, Sue, to get across a hurdle that I've run into dealing with local lawyers. But what you said took it out of the me and made it the we, and it sounded much better to my spirit. It sounded like a future plan. And so the people now hear a direction to go in. Does that make sense to you? See, I wouldn't have never thought of that, Doc. Never.
Well, let me tell you what I know from reading and from experience and common sense. That is, all lawyers and doctors are not going to be in the 10% of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Only usually 10%. 90% are going to graduate, and they're going to have at least a C average or higher. Mm-hmm. All of them were taught the same thing. Some retained it and used it better than others. They had equal skills on paper, but not ability-wise, and they were able to perform and get out with a law degree, a medical degree, or a degree in accounting. Mm-hmm. Those are some dangerous people. They are ready to go. Right. But they are not going to be picked up by the people with the money and given big scholarships and big internships. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to come back and work for the local community organization, the local NAACP, the local Urban League, the local church choir association that covers the whole state of Mississippi. And they're going to use the same legal principles in those areas. Mm-hmm. And then you'll start wondering, why are these members in this religious community can elect their own council people, their own supervisors, their own mayors in this town or this county, and next door with the same population, they can't do that. They have a lot of people that are going to jail every 4 years, and in County X, where they have their young trainees already working and been trained,
Right.
they are not catching those kind of hells in their lives. This can be done, I told you again,
Man.
in less than a generation. Things that I talk about can happen in 5 to 9 years. 5 to 9 years, because if you look at it, black folks in America and the world don't have but 6 years to determine their destiny from birth to death. And if they continue with the way they are going, they're not going to have the ability to do that after December the 31st, 2029.
29.
They're going to be opted out as a real human being in the world. I didn't say in Mississippi.
Yeah.
I didn't say in the nation. I say in the world. Because everywhere in the world you have a black person, he or she is looked at as a non-entity by the Europeans, by the Asians, by the Chinese, by all the other groups in the world, because we have never fought the enemy. We pray for the enemy.
I'm going to say, up until now, I think the strategy of fear, verbally and physically, and verbal, visual fear, has been put on us. And I'll say we had before television. Let me say that we had those kings, Malcolm X, those people of courage, Abernathy's. We had those. Even some of our recently deceased John Lewis. I'm not talking about the who I sees now. Not talking about them. The appearing to have learned to play the game, and the strategy has changed. And I'm not seeing a thriving community. I'm not seeing a prospering effort to correct the situations in the community from the leadership that we considered our leadership, I'm going to say. I'll say now we have to do something different.
Of course.
What you suggested about going to the college and finding that student who's in there to make change and save them from corporate monies and debts and problems
And internships and things like
internships and stuff, saving them from that. I love that strategy. I'm definitely going to remember that forever. Finding those preachers who are actually doing the right thing, who want us to do the right thing, trying to get those persons of God and faith, regardless of religion and faith, who understand that the Creator is the Creator, and loving one another is the important part. Bringing those things in to keep them from being tempted by the evil side, or the wrong side of capitalism, as you call it. Because I'm a roll with the capital side. If we're going to play Monopoly, like, we're going to get more money than them so we can control how things are done, so we can defeat our enemy, not so that we can become them. You feel me? Like, I don't want to get the control just so I can be them.
That's the fact. You want to be